Awesome. Good evening, leaders. It is such a joy and honor to welcome you to the first session of the Unfolding Capacity Virtual Leadership Masterclass Super Week. Wow, we have missed you dearly during our recess, and it feels incredibly good to see our UC family gathered once again. To all our attendees joining us for the very first time, welcome home. You are in the right room with the right people at the perfect time. This week is not just another set of sessions, it is a week of alignment, sharpening, stretching, and real leadership elevation. And I want to say this clearly this week will be on another level of exceptional because I personally cannot associate with anything less than excellence. At Unfolding Capacity, excellence is not a goal we aim for. It is the culture from which every conversation, every session, every guest, and every engagement is launched. And Super Week is a perfect expression for that of that spirit. So prepare yourself, expect some depth, super clarity, and expect transformation. Tonight, we open Super Week with a phenomenal leader, Mojalefa Daniel Maluka, a voice of wisdom, psychological insight, and human transformation. I promise you, this session is going to be rich. Mojalefa is not just a counselor or a lecturer, he's a psychological voice who has helped countless people rise from confusion to clarity, from heaviness to hope, from stagnation to purpose. A life coach, a mental wellness guide, a global speaker with a footprint that stretches across borders, and an author whose writings have shifted mindsets and strengthened hearts. When Mujalifa speaks, people don't just listen, they don't just learn, they change. He is a gift, and tonight we are honored to receive from him. Family, just before we begin, I want to share a few important notes. Number one, please complete the registration form. It helps us stay connected with you beyond tonight and ensures you don't miss any updates. I've already attached it on our chat room. Secondly, please, I request you to follow Unfolding Capacity on WhatsApp for regular leadership content, announcements, and upcoming masterclass sessions, and to ensure you don't miss out on links, especially for sessions such as this. Throughout the session, please feel free to use your Zoom reactions so that we can keep the energy alive and interactive. Let us keep our speaker engaged and just keep reacting and showing that we are part of this. And please participate in the comment section with your questions, with your reflections and insights. Your voice matters in this space. Tonight marks the beginning of a powerful journey, a journey of strengthening your leadership voice, your inner clarity, and your purpose as you prepare for 2026 and beyond. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing growth. Thank you for choosing excellence. Let us begin Super Week. Let us grow together and let tonight set the tone for the extraordinary. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the UC VLMC Super Week Session 1. Let us unfold your leadership capacity.
Take a brief moment to like, share, and subscribe.
Sir Mujalifa, please take it on.
Wow. What an intro and what a way to start what is to be a phenomenal week of recalibration and just getting things sorted, and I hope I'm clear. Feel free to write on the comment section and so on. So I'm really hoping our network will be good. But thank you so much to our convener. Amazement, thank you so much for also putting me in the squad. It's always great to be part of a winning team. And I think for me, just being chosen and picked is always interesting. Now, just to start off with what I'm talking about today, which is bounce back ability. I'm remembering that when I was a kid, I was very scrawny, right? I was very tiny. I used to get teased a lot. I was bullied a lot. I've grown a bit of body mass, so I can take people on now. But when I was young, I used to get teased a lot, and I remember playing soccer. I'd be, when squads are chosen, and no one picks you and you're the last one. So you become everybody's consolation prize or whoever, is lacking one plus. So, but where does that fit in? It fits in quite nicely with what we are talking about, bouncing back. Life is pretty strange, right? You could have all your ducks in a row and something just hits you sideways. COVID hit a lot of us sideways. I think some of us got COVID, and it changed a lot of lives. So bounce back ability is basically the ability to bounce back when life hits you with curve business, in your family, in your marriage, but there are areas in our lives as leaders where sometimes we feel like, geez, I've dropped the ball. You can't have everything perfect. And I always say to people, um, there is this thing called post-traumatic growth, right? So post-traumatic growth is this very interesting idea that a bunch of psychologists came up with to say they realized that um, there were a certain type of people that would go through very traumatic incidents, right? It could be death, divorce, loss of business, going through the recession, anything that is quite traumatic. And instead of coming out worse, they came out better. And they tried to look at this whole thing, and they realized that there was something about some type of person that is able to ricochet and to bounce back even when the storms are raging and all kinds of things are going wrong. We know, for example, that the world went through a recession, countless recessions, all kinds of things that went wrong economically. But it's been very interesting to see people bounce back. And I'm hoping today that as we are in this session as leaders, we'll think through our lives and areas in our lives that we may not be so proud of, that have not really shaped up the way we want to, and kind of say, I can still bounce back. A business not doing well, I can still bounce back. A marriage not doing well, I can still bounce back. Leadership having gone wrong, I can still bounce back. And that's what we are talking about when we talk about bounce back ability. And I hope we are still there and we are getting what we are talking about today. So, um, it's more than just recovery. Bounce back ability is the capacity to absorb shock. Um, life can be shocking. Business can be shocking. One minute you are doing pretty well, and one minute you are not. You're working for a business, you're an entrepreneur, and the next thing you find out that, geez, this thing is shutting down. And it can, if you are not used to challenges coming your way and dealing with challenges and shocks, that thing can cave you in. There's a certain boxer who his biggest problem, and this is what the commentary was regarding his career as a boxer. It was not necessarily that he was weak or he couldn't really punch and so on. The problem was when he got knocked down, he couldn't get back up. And that was his biggest problem, that he couldn't, he would come into the space where he would be so shocked. Is this me? Is this how life is supposed to be? Am I seeing this divorce letter? Am I seeing, being kicked out of this business that I'm in? I was talking to a friend of mine last month, and he sent me a termination letter. He's using this building for his business, and the landlord tossed him with a termination letter to say, man, you need to be out of here by end of the month because you are not bringing the money. But the one thing that I could see through his eyes was the sheer determination to win, the sheer determination to absorb the shock, to say, this is what it is. And when it comes to our careers and our businesses, I believe that if we don't overcome shock, we will not be able to handle the next level that we are supposed to enter into. We need to develop that ability to absorb shock. because it is in that way that you get to grow your resilience and your ability to handle even more, right? And what we mean by absorbing shock is dealing with adapting to certain challenges that are going to come our way. So, what are you failing to adapt to? You know, I'm in the academic space, and currently we are having serious challenges with artificial intelligence because we've got people who are legacy people, and I'm hoping, okay, I don't know who may be here, but there's this huge debate that's going on about the role of artificial intelligence, and the truth is AI is not going anywhere. We need to just face that reality and say, what do we do with this now very, very powerful tool? Because it's here. I remember when we were growing up, there was, this saying that says, Philip is here, feel it, it's here. The truth is, there are certain things that are not going anywhere. And it is important for us to say that now that this thing is here, now that this letter is here, now that this promotion is here, that might be changing everything about my life, I'm going to have to face it head on. I believe sometimes that we are not bullish enough. And that is what it's going to take for us to get to the next level. Does it require relocation? Like one of our speakers this week had to relocate from South Africa and move on to the UAE. That ability to say, how do I adapt to this new world? Is it easy? No. But does it carry more? Yes. And that is the whole idea of bounce back ability, to say bouncing back up means something new. And sometimes we can get so caught up in the old, so caught up in how, this is how life has always been, and I'm used to it, and so on. But that ability to say, this carries something new. The next bounce of the ball is important. So it's important for us to have that ability to say, okay, fine, rock bottom, but it does mean that I still have a bit of air inside of me, so I'm going to be able to pick myself up. So that ability to bounce back is important. This thing called kintsugi is so powerful, and when you get the chance, please Google kintsugi. It is this brilliant concept that talks to repurposing, where you find that, for example, a porcelain cup breaks, and instead of the owner of that porcelain cup tossing it aside, they take it and they put it back together, and they repurpose it, and they use this glue-like liquid, that is golden, that makes what was once just a white porcelain cup into a white porcelain cup with cracks that have been, covered, or, put together using this golden liqueur. So what this then tells me is that sometimes what we define as failure could be a great opportunity for repurposing. And I want that to sink in this morning, in this evening. The area in your life that seems to be a blunder, failure, could be repurposing. And I know that for a fact, because there's an area in my life where I really faced rock bottom. And geez, coming out of that, I had to call myself to what I call a board meeting. Now, a lot of us, we attend board meetings, right? And but today, I just want to say to you, how about you call yourself to a board meeting? You be the chairperson, you be the secretary, you be the one writing minutes, you be the one calling yourself to order. But have an agenda, and that agenda is you. That agenda is 2026. That agenda is, okay, fine. 2025, there are certain things that did not work out well. But in 2026, this is my game plan. In 2027, this is my game plan because I've got to bounce back. There are some things that sometimes we end up not focusing on that we should be focused on because they're too embarrassing to look at. And but I really want to say to you today, call yourself to a board meeting. Take yourself out and call yourself to a board meeting and draft some minutes and come up with some resolutions on how do I bounce back. One of the resolutions I came up with was, listen, man, nobody's coming to your rescue. Nobody, absolutely nobody's coming to your rescue. You've got to pick yourself up by your bootstraps and you got to make a plan because you're in this hole and you can get yourself out. Of course, cry out and scream for help. But, geez, man, this gives you an opportunity to bounce back. This gives you an opportunity to say to yourself, listen, this is not the end of it. I mean, I'm looking at this other guy. He's a bubblegum musician. Now, when I was growing up, there was this music called bubblegum music, right? He's a real guy from, Soweto, an amazing musician, Freddie Gwala, and I mean, his music used to pop in the 80s. Some amazing songs, I mean, one of the songs says, keep it diamond, take out the diamond, because you remember back in the days, Gauteng was the place of gold, and South Africa, of course, was the place of diamonds and so on. So I was shocked to see him during COVID, during a time when everything was going under, almost everything. I saw him on TikTok, and the man his music was bouncing back. He was doing videos on TikTok. I think he's still doing that, and he is actually being booked for shows. Now, this is somebody that was quiet for quite some time, but somehow, with everybody being in like just confinement, people found a lot of things that wouldn't generally be entertaining or that they wouldn't entertain normally. But because COVID was an abnormal time, it gave some people opportunities. So I want you to think today about the opportunity called 2026 or the opportunity called 2025. And I want you to just write that it's my time of opportunity. Voice that out, write it out. This is my time of opportunity. And I've come to realize that if you don't think along those lines, you'll always think confinement, limitation. This is me. This is my one career. I'll probably die being a doctor. Whereas, you can spread your wings for as far as you can go. I've come to realize that, listen, man, you're your own limitation. Work on it, bounce back. So go and Google Kintsugi. It's an amazing thing. And just thinking about your Freddy Gualas and who else, so many other people that found opportunity during a time of confinement. And today, I just want to say to us, there is so much opportunity, even when you feel like you are hitting rock bottom. If you call yourself out to a board meeting, give yourself the time and the space, work with somebody that can help you see the opportunity, even in the middle of a crisis. It could be an opportunity to just recalibrate, to work on self, but something's got to give, and it shouldn't be you. So there's this wonderful lady called Angela Duckworth. I love her material. She teaches on grit. Recently, she gave a talk on putting away your phone, which can become a distraction, but nevertheless, I digress. But the equation for grit is passion plus perseverance equals to long-term success. I'm busy with my PhD at the moment, and I think several of us are. The one thing that they always say about a PhD is it's not a test of your intelligence, it's a test of your perseverance. It's actually a test of how far are you willing to take this thing? Are you willing to take the beating and keep on going. And I think once I understood that, I realized that, listen, man, you got to stick this out. You have to stick it out. And I think sometimes, when we go through all kinds of challenges in our lives, we kind of feel like maybe this thing is going to take me out. But what I've come to realize is that in life, nothing really comes to us that we actually don't have the ability to deal with, especially those things that come facing us. Passion plus perseverance equals to long-term success. I think sometimes we've become so impatient and we are not willing to persevere. If this thing doesn't work out now, I'm done. If this business doesn't work, I'm done. If this marriage doesn't work, I'm done. If this organization doesn't work, I'm done. But the one thing is you got to really stick it out, man. You got to, tick and say, listen, I've tried that, tried this, tried that. You got to have a bit of a list before you call it quits. I think that can be a great Facebook post, right? You got to have a bit of a list before you call it quits. Sometimes I think we quit too easily. And the people that beat us are some of the people that beat us, to be honest, are not as competent as we are. They're just able to stick it out. They're just able to stick it out. So it's important for us to persevere. It is perseverance provides the engine to keep moving when the path becomes difficult. Perseverance is the key to success. I remember we used to talk about that. So Angela Duckworth has this amazing book. You gotta go get it. It talks about grit. And in her thesis, she actually just talks about how people that are able to build sustainable careers, sustainable businesses and organizations are just people that are gritty. They are gritty, they are gutsy. I'm a pretty soft person, right, generally, but I don't back down from a fight. I generally don't back down from a fight. So if you provoke me, because remember when I began my story, I told you that I used to get bullied a lot. So one of the things I learned was don't fight, but if the need arises, yeah, you gotta put on your gloves and go in there and get the answer that needs to be gotten. So the importance of perseverance, your pain threshold. And I think as leaders, we need to understand that as leaders, we are going to have to take on or absorb a lot of pain, and we're going to have to deal with a lot of stress and a lot of strain. There's some bills that you might have to say, hey, listen, I might have to go in there and tell them I can't pay you this month. But I'll try and I'll do my best to pay you next month. Now, a lot of us, we cower, and I look at, there's one particular president that is not the greatest person on earth, but the one thing that you can pick up from him is his ability to stick it out. I mean, even when people were saying you are not coming back as a president, he believed that he was going to make it. And that's the kind of mindset that sometimes I think we are lacking. That mindset that says, I'll be back. In other words, the last man standing is going to be me. My business is going to stand. My enterprise is going to stand. I might have to reinvent myself or reinvent my business or re-strategize. I know Faith talks a lot about strategy. I might have to go back to the drawing board, but giving up is not something that I'm going to do. So the grit equation, how well are you doing with your passion, with your perseverance? Because when we look at the game of careers and building organizations, we got to think sustainably. We got to think long term. You're looking at, organizations like Siemens, for example. I mean, we've got Siemens in Midrand in Joburg. And I mean, when I was growing up, Siemens was phones. And all of a sudden, they realized that this is, the world is changing. And as the world changes, I gotta rebrand. I gotta go back to the drawing board and think about what else I can become. Geez, man, what else can I become? Can I become a better version of myself? Can this organization become a better version of itself? Can this business become a better version of this business? You know what I'm saying? So the ability to stick it out. Um, Christo Visser, one of the great CEOs in South Africa. I was listening to his podcast, being interviewed, and the interviewer asked him, "Why did you stick it out in South Africa when everybody else left, especially in the early 90s?" And he said, "I stuck it out because I had faith in this country. I had faith in this country, and I realized that this was a pivotal moment, um, and that everything is happening everywhere else." And he said something very, very interesting as well to say, I I could see the fortune that laid ahead. And I thought that was very interesting to say being optimistic is also very important. Keeping your head up, even when you are at your lowest, keeping your head up. So it's important for us to have a growth mindset because that's what's going to help us with bounce back ability. When you look at somebody like Madonna, who's a musician, right? I'm sure some of us have been exposed to her music. She's old now, but the one thing that is can't be overstated about Madonna is that she has lived through quite a few genres of music and seasons of music, from pop to soul to, and she could not be boxed in. And that is what we call a growth mindset. And sometimes it's not that people are boxing us in, we are boxing ourselves in. And that is what makes it so difficult to bounce back. We stay down because we've kind of confined ourselves to this one thing that we should become. And when that one thing fails, then we can't get up because we've got nothing to get up for. But if you're constantly growing and evolving and realizing that I am growing, I am evolving, my desires are changing, my perspective is changing, it allows you the opportunity to grow. So, how do you know that you are growing? You are embracing change. You're embracing challenges as well. You know, I'm growing gray hair, and I must say it's not the greatest sign. But I've had to accept it's not downhill from there. It's gray hill from there. So persist in the face of setbacks. A growth mindset as well sees effort as the path to mastery. And sometimes, guys, we've got to fail in order for us to be great masters because, sometimes we don't make sense of people's failures. We don't become great teachers, actually, because we don't understand what failure is, you know? So the growth mindset as well is about learning how to deal with criticism, and learning from criticism that you get from other people. Um, the other thing about the growth mindset is finding inspiration in others' success. And by that, I was talking to this other team as well to say, you got to find inspiration from other people. You shouldn't bring yourself to a place where you are offended by other people's success, because that is one of the things that's going to keep you down. So thinking about that. So the pillars of resilience are emotional intelligence. In other words, understanding self and others. One of my clients, I had to spend a bit of time with him to make him realize just how much of an impact he was having on somebody close to them. And, sometimes, especially gifted people, there's a lot of research around giftedness. And one of the challenges with giftedness is failure to understand others, and how others fit into your narrative because you've become so great at being a master of understanding things, not people, things. And as a result of that, people become very foreign. So, and we need people to bounce back, by the way. So it's important for us to develop and to grow in emotional intelligence. I mean, the honest truth is, even in life, we get hurt by people, but we also get healed by people. So it's important not to journey alone. So that's another thing to go and think about. The squad that you need. I mean, where I am right now, geez, it's because of the squad that's around me. So that's something to think about when it comes to emotional intelligence. Who's around you? In fact, most of the clients, quite a few of my clients, I've had to sit down and have very long conversations about them and the role that they play in the lives of the people around them and where they place the people that are around them in terms of value of importance. Because the truth is, if you're going to bounce back, you're going to need people, you know. It's not very easy to get back up sometimes when you're hurt and you're on your own. Then the next thing, of course, is adaptability, right? The ability to adapt and bend but not break, because COVID bent a lot of us. And I'm glad a lot of us didn't break. We were affected, but a lot of us didn't break. I think a lot of us have become we've become so rigid, so rigid. And perhaps it is in the vicissitudes of life that we are able to sit down and to say, geez, man, I need to be a bit more flexible, a bit more flexible, you know? That's how we were created, by the way, to adapt, and upgrade and be different versions of what we can become. Um, I used to have this very old laptop, very old, and people that are tech gurus will always tell you that if your laptop is 5 years old, then it's very old. And I'm not a tech guy, so please don't hit me after this. I'm just passing on the message. In fact, they say 3 years. I'm like, okay, blinking is 3 years. And what they're trying to make commentary on there is the fact that the world around the laptop changes so quickly and rapidly that by the time year 5 hits, your laptop is obsolete. It's struggling. It can't breathe because the world has changed so quickly. And that's the issue with adaptability, because the world is changing at such a rapid pace. I mean, we are looking at just what we passed now, which is the G20. And one of the things that have come out of the G20 is how the geopolitics has just shifted from speaking about the West to speaking about the rest. And, years ago, we would have been speaking about one massive country that had global influence, but the world has shifted. So, how do we respond as leaders to a shifting world? Because perhaps maybe many of us are licking our wounds simply because we don't see opportunities, because we are expecting opportunities in areas where there is no opportunity anymore. And if we could be adaptable, then perhaps maybe looking elsewhere, we could find the solutions. And that's something for some of us who are business, gurus and so on. I mean, somebody actually engaged me in a conversation to say, Mojalefa, the most priciest, and I'm using just a weird term there, currency in the world is not the dollar. It's not the pound. Go check where faith is. It's around where faith is in the UAE. That's actually the richest currency. That's where the money is. And because a lot of us are under this deception that the world is still 50 years ago, We are struggling to breathe in a world that is now blowing in a different direction. Adaptability is important. Adaptability is important. Okay, let's mute, guys. The last one is optimism. I spoke about optimism. Seeing the path forward is going to be extremely important. As I land the plane, the habits of gritty leaders. A gritty leader is purpose-driven, dare I say futuristic in their thinking as well. I always say this about leaders. A leader is somebody that lives in the future and only comes back to the present to come and tell the rest of the people what's happening in the future. You can tag me on that one and put it on LinkedIn. The second thing is habits on gritty leaders, is reframing failure. In psychology, there's this thing called reframing. In other words, giving it a different lens, right? Giving it a different lens. In other words, what meaning can I get out of this? The third thing is consistent action. It's important for us as leaders to have a bias for action. A bias for action. Be a person who is active. We can't just think ourselves, to infinity. We've got to have a bias for action. I'm that kind of person. I think a lot, but when it comes to having to do stuff, I just decide, listen, I've thought about this long enough. And I gotta take some action. So there's gotta be a bias for action if you're going to bounce back in life. And the other thing that's a habit of a gritty leader is this gritty leader is a strategic recovery, right? In other words, they prioritize physical and mental well-being to sustain high performance. So what's the arc of recovery? It's the crisis. It's working to stabilize the moment and the situation. And you gotta remain composed during that period. I always say, if the pilot is not panicking, then why am I panicking? And the next thing is the ability to pivot, right? And pivot at the right moment. And the last thing is embracing growth, emerging stronger than ever. Nelson Mandela said, do not judge me by my successes, judge me by how many times I fell down and got back up again, right? So how do we cultivate team grit? Resilience isn't just individual, it's cultural. To build a gritty team, leaders must foster psychological safety. I think that's a buzzword that's been used nowadays. In other words, people must feel comfortable to talk about the fact that they feel bad, but we don't stay in those moments. We talk about it and we talk about how do I get out of it? So if we can't even engage in a conversation about how bad we feel, how are we going to recover? So we need to create teams where people are safe enough to speak. I was coaching some doctors, I think it was last year or so, in one of the public hospitals. And one of the commentaries that was made was, we cannot speak because our bosses are here. Yeah, so they were like, dude, look, we like you. You seem like a great guy, but we cannot speak because our bosses are here. So the question becomes, is that what's happening with people that are around you? Do they feel like they can't speak because their boss is around them? And I'm not talking about like having a spongy-hearted team. I'm talking about being able to create an environment where even your tough guys are able to say, can I just open up and say, I'm not okay? And I'm not saying feel pity for me. I'm just saying, just know I'm not okay. And I'm working on a solution and so on and so forth. So do people feel safe around you? So that's another conversation, I mean, that we need to have. I mean, there's a book right now that's on the market that talks about psychological safety in businesses. It was written by one academic lady. So do people know that they can count on you when they are trying but failing? So the return on investment on resilience is employee retention in teams, change adoption, and team productivity. So we miss out on this return on investment when we are not resilient people. And when we don't create resilience and opportunities for resilience in our organization. So organizations with high resilience scores significantly outperform peers in key matrices. When your team members think that this guy's going to dump us as soon as problems arise, then they'll probably leave as soon as they can. And they are not going to be willing to adapt to change. And they're not going to, be super productive because they're going to, they'll give you the bare minimum. They'll give you what needs to be given. They'll probably not go the extra mile. They won't adopt extra role, behavior or really be part of the citizenship of your organization. So there's a return on investment on building a resilient organization or business. And even the employees know that, listen, we've always bounced back and we will bounce back, you know. So it's important for us to learn how to turn crises into opportunities. And I've seen that. I'm a witness of that. And I've got personal testimony towards turning crises into opportunities. I remember somebody saying, geez, man, you are like a master of reinvention. I don't think I'm as close as Madonna and some other leaders, but I've tried the very best that I could. So, in essence, the question is, what is your next step to build resilience? That is a key question. And as I close, I've got this concept that I'm running about the locker room. I'm busy writing or thinking through a book that I'll be writing very soon on the locker room moments. You could have had a terrible first half, but what's going to bring the change is the conversations that you're going to have in the locker room. Once again, thank you very much for this opportunity. And I'm going to hand over to our wonderful convener to help us move forward, whether it's Q&A and so on. Thank you.
Wow. Bouncebackability, MDM. Wow. Yeah, no, I think the applause are saying it all, and it's not enough. It's not enough. It's not enough, say. You just shared. And it's interesting because this is a time that we need this, This is a time that we desperately need this because, man, at a time where it's so difficult because of the world of social media and everything being broadcasted, most failures become public, even personal failures. So bouncing back becomes a huge challenge. And you've just said it at the right time for that matter. Because at a time like this, when we're closing off the year, people are like, yo, I don't know if I'm going to make it. Someone posted something funny uh, and they said that, look, it's towards the end of 2025 and nobody is saying anything about, hey, I'm looking forward to 2026. Hey, I can't wait for 2026. Nobody is saying that. Is it because the year has humbled them? Is it because the reality seems to suggest that, hey, it's too hard? We gotta be humble. We gotta change how we look at things. So you have just hit the nail on the head, say, and really, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you, but I don't want to let you go. There are so many of us here. If you've got a question or a comment, please let us know. Do type it on the chat room or just lift up your hand and raise your hand, and then we're going to allow you to ask that question and just say hi to our guest because I think it's important as well. See, I think there's a question here on the art of beauty in the say that I have a question on the art of beauty in the chaos. Please say something around that. And that is from Dr. Rababani. If you also have a question, please feel free to let us know. And yes, we'll do share the presentation. You will get it. But yeah, over to you, Mujalifa, on the
Okay.
question on beauty in the chaos.
Yeah, look, I think I always say to the guys that I coach, generally life doesn't make sense. Life does not make sense at all. Um, and it is in that you then shift, because there are two ways you could live your life. Either in the sense making dimension, where you're trying to make sense of everything. Why did the cup break? Why did the porcelain cup break? Or you can shift your mindset to what is called the meaning making dimension. Life doesn't necessarily have to make sense, but you can make meaning out of it. Now, I'm connecting to what you are saying in the following sense. When somebody's looking at an art piece, somebody could see it as beautiful, somebody could see it as frustrating, as ugly. It's really about your perspective. The biggest thing about seeing beauty is that beauty lies in the eye of the beholder. And I also say this, that the world will always remain broken to somebody who's wearing cracked lenses. You got to sharpen your perspective on how you view things. Am I going to try and make sense of everything, even when it's not making sense? Or am I going to try and find meaning in the pain, beauty in the broken glass? So it's important for us to have the correct perspective, or to work on our perspective. There was a season in my life where I lost quite a lot of things, and it was a painful season. I got sick, I was depressed, I was stressed, lost a lot of friends, reputation, and everything. And it was, to be honest with you, I needed that moment. From a sense perspective, it didn't make sense. I'm like, I've ticked all the boxes, man. But things just didn't work out. But I needed that moment because it sharpened my perspective and it got me a bit emboldened. And I don't think I'd be where I am today had it not been for that season. Now, from a sense perspective, things didn't make sense. In fact, somebody asked me and said, "What's going on with you? Like, things don't make sense. You are intelligent, you are this, you're a deep guy, but here you are, your life is shambles. What's going on?" And it didn't make sense. But from a meaning-making point of view, it was almost as if there needed to be a shift of perspective. I needed that locker room moment to come out for the second half of my life, which is where I am, with a different perspective, a different view on life. So that is the whole balance of beauty. Beauty lies in the eye of the beholder. Sit down and find meaning in the mess. Okay.
Wow. Yeah, thing is that as you speak, and you mentioned how it everything was going well, was going down, yet you had all the potential to be great, and people are like, why is it not going well? And it just takes me back to how you started this response, that sometimes things just don't make sense. Sometimes things just don't make sense. And I think as leaders, we have to get to that level where we accept that it may not make sense, but we need to find a way to adapt ourselves and to respond well. So no, that is powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. There's a comment here by Tawang. He says that I've had the point on not giving up and persevering, but when do you know the point at which you should give up on something and move on to the next? I think that's a serious question. Whether it's a job, a hobby, relations as a whole, and I think it might add up to what you said earlier, Mujalifa, on repurposing yourself, and failure as an opportunity to repurpose. So he's saying that when do you know at the point at which you should give up on something and move on to the next?
Yeah, look, like I said during the talk, you need to have a list. I tried this, I tried that, I tried this, I tried that. And and then finally just sit down with a mentor or somebody that's quite in the know and say, listen, man, here's my list. This is what I've tried,
Mm.
right? What are your thoughts? Because I think maybe it's time I call it quits. And sometimes having a multitude of counselors, and by multitude, I mean three at most. Just people that you can say, look, man, here's my list. I tried, I did this, I did that. And the people who've got enough sense will say, yeah, man, uzamile this person. This person actually tried, but it hasn't worked. Maybe it's time to pivot. Maybe it's time to let it go. You know, I feel sometimes that we don't even have a list. You've done like one thing and it's been a horrible year, and you kind of let it go because the year was so bad. And yet there could have been other options. I mean, I was counseling this other guy he's in the business of delivering diesel, right? So everything just went bad. And he came and he wanted to just talk about his business. And my advice was, what have you tried? Like, as a consultant, I'm like, what have you tried? And he gave me a list of what he has tried. And I gave him a couple of other options which he had not thought about. You see what I'm saying? So having that ability to sit down with somebody to say, okay, fine, this is what I've done. Is there something that I'm missing here? You know, um, before I call it quits, before I walk away, as the song by Celine Dion says, think twice. So and I mean last month he came to me with two of his vans. From zero. He had lost all the vans and all the trailers. Last month he came, and but the recovery, to be honest, because I had this conversation with him around Feb. So think about it: March, April, May, June, July, August, September. It was 7 months of trying to sort this life thing out. So had he just sat and said, I tried, I'm giving up, and not gone to see somebody that could give him good advice, he would have called it quits before that. Sometimes I feel that we I don't know, maybe it's because we don't trust other people enough, to kind of say, look, there might be somebody that knows better than you. There might be somebody that does this leadership thing better than you, that does business better than you. Why not consult? Why not ask them out for coffee? Dude, I'm stuck. What do I do to get myself up to the next level? My career, I feel like I've reached the ceiling. Talk to me. What else can be done here? But sometimes we want to be the Lone Ranger, ride off to the sunset in a horse. Whereas you can have a squad. I honestly believe that life is better lived in packs, Packs. Who's in your pack? Who are the people that you can call and say, in Kasi language, we say, uhambi ovota. And you call them out and you go and you attack the problem. And you come out on the other side a bit better. And I know we struggle with trust and everything, but there's got to be those two or three people that you can say, here's my list, show me, and let's move to the next level.
Wow. Tabang, I hope you were well answered, but your question did help a lot of people. I think, as you said, Mojalefa, we really underestimated the value of having the right people around us. That group of three people who we can trust, who we can speak to and gain wisdom from and insight. I cannot stress it enough. Fellow leaders, I hope you have those people around you. You have those people around you. You've got people you look up to, people you can learn from, people whose wisdom you can heed and listen. And yeah, I hope you have that. I have mine, and Jalifa definitely has his. But I really hope, as leaders, you work to get the people, not just cheerleaders, but people who can actually speak into your life and speak wisdom and look into your situation. Without bias, but give you the insight that you need. And they know you well to know your strength. But there are two questions, Mujalifa, and that I thought I should ask her. I always have a list of questions, but I'm just going to look into on two things, right? So the first one is that you mentioned the importance of being the last man standing. And I saw a number of people applauding that as well. So, in your experience as a consultant and life coach, what have you observed to be separating those who quit early from those who persevere long enough to see transformation? What separates the two? And then the second question would be, uh, having shared that from, I'm forgetting her name, the great lady, awesome lady. She said that you said that passion plus perseverance equals to, oh, Duckworth, yes. Passion plus perseverance equals to long-term success. Now, my question is, how can leaders maintain passion when circumstances drain motivation? And what anchors perseverance during difficult seasons? And I'm saying this, even likening it to bring it back to our country, South Africa, and look into the challenges that being a president of this country brings. And so, what can leaders do to maintain that passion? And when the motivation is just being drained everywhere you go, and what would anchor your perseverance during the difficult seasons?
Okay. I think perseverance and grit are extremely important leaders. I always tell people I have what is called a bulldog faith. I'm a pretty gentle person. I'm very gentle, but I I I don't quit easily, and I don't like losing. I don't. Um, and I don't think as a leader it's wise to like losing. Leadership is a game of moving forward. So I don't like losing at all. Um, I'm not a sore loser, but I don't like losing. You know, if somebody's gotta be chosen, I'll be very happy for them, but I would have put up a fight. And it's important, leaders, for us to have that kind of mindset. The mindset that says, at the end of it all, I'd rather die trying. That's the kind of person I am. I'm one of those people that says, listen, I'd rather die trying to build this business. I'd rather die. So, it's going to take a lot to get me. When you have a bulldog, it doesn't let go. So let's be those kind of people that are gritty. There's this movie back in the days where there was this guy who they would always be trying to kill him. And he'd always make it out of it, and he'd say, "They do not call me Die Hard for nothing." And I think a lot of us have lost that, man. We've lost that thing that says it's gonna take a lot to put me off. Failure, falling down, bankruptcy, it's going to take a lot. I'm going to recoil. I'm going to bounce back. I might have to change the name of my company, change some ideas, refine some ideas, but I will bounce back, especially if you're an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is a spirit, man. And it just says, listen, if this shoe business doesn't work, I will do dry cleaning, but I'm not letting go of this thing. I'm in it to win it. So the grit element is important. I can't stress the importance of being gritty, especially when you know that, listen, man, this is what I'm all about. And we can also, one of the other things is when you know that this is where I'm supposed to be. You gotta be convinced. Sometimes I feel like we don't have that conviction that this is where I'm supposed to be, or that is where I'm supposed to be. When you look at yourself, you're like, I'm supposed to be a CEO, and I'm going to fight for that. I'm supposed to be a COO. I'm going to fight for that. I'll dress, I'll speak, I'll think, I'll consult. That's what we call grit. And then obviously, with all the failures that go on, Doc, we do kind of deflate. It's life, right? We do lose passion. But one of the things that I want to say to us is the importance and the value of optimism, being optimistic. And I'm connecting that to the issue of not just living in the present. You won't succeed as a leader if you are living in the present. You gotta be futuristic in your thinking. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I'll still be here. Where's my business gonna be? If you're a doctor, where's my surgery gonna be? Where's my career gonna be? Do you see yourself clear? And that's something that I want us to think about today, to say, if you are going to remain passionate, you got to be futuristic in your thinking. Where do I fit in this narrative 5 years from now? I love my research supervisor. He's a very strict guy, but I love him because he keeps me going. I mean, recently he called me professor. I'm like, dude, thank you. I don't know where you come from, but thank you. Because it is in that we find fuel for our fire. It's the company that you keep. It's the people that are around you that fuel you. It's the material that you use. Recently, I'll tell you something that I've been up to. I went off social media for about a month because I realized I was getting bloody pessimistic. I was getting so pessimistic about the world, about the future. Am I going to make it? Is the world going to be okay? Is life going to be okay? And I just decided, listen, what's the problem? And I realized you are watching too many negative things and they're sucking the passion out of you for life, for trying harder, the environment that you are exposing yourself to is so pessimistic. So you got to work on it. And I shut it out. I'm on a quest to tell people if you've never switched off your phone, you got to really ask yourself if you really want to remain passionate about life and the future. Because there's so many negative things going out there and they're sucking the life out of you. Social media, people dying, this, that, So, and I must say, I've been off like social media for about a month. I've been off social media for about a month and I feel much better. Much better. My anxiety is gone. I'm not as anxious as I was before. Because you look at your life, you're like, yo, my business is running slow. And their business is running fasty, you know? So, some of the things that we are applying in our lives as leaders that seem to be normal are affecting our ability to function at optimum best as leaders. And we got to sit down with ourselves and say, what is it that's fueling my pessimism? Got to work on it. So for me, it was social media, and I'm following this other guy called Carl Newport, and he's just a proponent of guys just tone it down with the social media because it's messing with your mind. You can't even think straight, you know. So basically, in essence, what I'm saying to us, Doc, is GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. You gotta watch what comes in because what comes in is what's gonna come out. Yeah.
Geigo. I'm going to remember that one. Geigo. Wow. I don't know. Is there anyone with a question or comment? I saw Zianda clapping when he spoke about social media. I think she strongly supports that. So, Zianda, would you want to say something on that before we head towards the closing? Once again, I'm opening an opportunity. If you have a question or a comment in the group, please feel free to just say, hi, I've got a question. And yeah, we'll let you ask. We've got about 5 to 6 minutes left before we close. Zianda, did you have something that you would like to add on the social media matter, or just Geigo, if I can put it that way? As Mojalefa said, garbage in, garbage out. What you take in determines what you take out. Okay. Yeah. As Zienda is preparing, let me just ask last two questions, and then we'll go to the conclusion. Uh, as we prepare, Mojalefa, for a new year, because I know for most of us here already preparing for 2026, some of us already in the second term of 2026. So, what is one particular or practical habit, and not an attitude, not a mindset, but a habit that you believe every leader in this room should begin cultivating and right now to strengthen their bounce back ability in 2026? What is one habit, one practical habit? And then the last one would be, a simple question on South Africa. Do you think, having watched what happened now when we had visitors as the G20, having listened to the progress that has been made with ESCOM, and getting some commissions and some things being revealed, do you think as a country we are at our bounce back ability moment? I'm gonna leave it there. Say.
Okay. So let me start with the first one. I want to say to us leaders, it's December, and if we can we prioritize rest? Yeah. I think a lot of us undermine the importance of rest. I'm a I'm a workaholic, and this year has shown me flames because of that quality. Because one of my mentors, one of my late mentors said, I tend to bend the candle on both sides, and that's not a good quality. So, and it comes from quite a lot of other things that I've had as a challenge. So I want to say to us leaders, to be ready for 2026, you gotta prioritize rest. And not only rest in your body, rest in your mind. And that is why I was referring to social media, that you got to slow down a bit so that next year, when next year hits, you are not tired. You're not entering the year exhausted. Sometimes I often challenge. I mean, there's one person I challenge to say, but why are you making all this money if you don't use it for rest? You know, you're making so much money and you are not resting. You are not, it's on to the next project. When do you rest? Because burnout is a reality and we are playing a long game in this thing. So prioritize rest in December, spending time with kids, not your phone and whatever else, spending time with real human beings and stretching your thinking, because one of the challenges with social media is that it's taught us to think in small bits and pieces, and we can't think prolonged thoughts and ideas. So in December, take a book instead of watching these small anyana clips on social media, because you're trying to recalibrate your thinking so that you can do what? So that you can start thinking long term and successful thoughts that can connect in 2026. So that's one thing I would recommend. Prioritize rest so that you get ready for a great year. That's very important. So that would be my idea for getting ready for 2026. And then when it comes to South Africa, I think, look, this is a great opportunity, and that's as far as I'll go when it comes to our country. It's a great opportunity for us to think about where we want our country to get to. There's quite a lot of permutations that can come out of these commissions. At best, they're going to embarrass a lot of people. I'm glad a lot of people also have. I mean, there's a lady who from I think one of the Metro Police who got her job back and her role back from one of the commissions. And for me, I was like, yeah, man, at least something coming out of this that's meaningful. I think for us, though, it should make us ask ourselves, are we are we bringing forth the kind of leaders that our country needs? In fact, the right word is, are we producing the kind of leaders that our country needs? And I mean that from a political point of view. not business, but political. I was listening to this other political commentator speaking, and he said, perhaps maybe our next political leader might be coming from elsewhere in leadership, whether it's business or religion, and that it might have to be somebody that's going to be daring enough because we might just need an ordinary leader that says enough is enough. Maybe political schools are not good enough to produce the next president of this country. And one of them, maybe our next president could be from in this group. We just need somebody who will have the guts. I think for me, my biggest worry is who's next? Who's next? Who's next? And in our failure to recognize somebody good enough to lead us, it should worry us as leaders. And it's not enough for us to point fingers at other people. How are we readying ourselves to take on the baton? And I thought that was quite interesting to say political schools may not cut it this time around. We might need somebody that just has the conviction to say, maybe I need to rise up and get myself ready to take on the baton, to take, this thing on. It's a tough one.
Wow. As you said, succession without a successor might as well be failure. So
Yeah.
it's a serious question that you've posed, especially from the political school side. But there are people here who are part of some political organizations. So I hope they will actually act out and take this as a question to ponder upon and to ask themselves what kind of leaders are they producing, even in those spaces. Look, Jalifa, I want to appreciate you. There's a comment here by Lawrence. He says that the session came just on time. I feel revived and refocused, especially on adaptability, finding my feet on the ground during times of uncertainty in business. As we close, Mojalefa, I think if there's one thing that for me I want to reiterate is the point that you made on long-term thinking, and vision thinking, thinking long-term, that in a world where we are living in where everything is fast, it's easy to forget the long term. It's easy to forget the ultimate. So let everyone that's in this room ask themselves, what is the ultimate? And if I'm bouncing back, what am I bouncing back toward? So that at the end of the day, we become leaders who are very clear on the end goal and not just busy on trying to achieve the day's goals. But leaders, what an exceptional evening. To every one of you who joined us tonight, thank you. Thank you for showing up with intention, with openness and a hunger to grow. Unfolding capacity is nothing without its people. And tonight you reminded us why this community is so special. Thank you for tuning in. A heartfelt appreciation to two of our Super Week guest leaders who were in attendance this evening, Faith Mneno and esteemed Zianda Bam. Your presence honors us, and we're grateful for the strength and wisdom you bring to this platform. We are looking forward to receiving from you later this week. And to our extraordinary guest tonight, MDM Mojalefa Daniel Maluka, thank you for depositing such deep wisdom onto us. I must say, while I'm at this point, that anyone who might need, further consult or personal coaching, please consider reaching out to Mojalefa. I'll ask them, Mojalefa, you please just share your last screen just so that they can see your contacts and be able to reach out. But thank you for depositing such deep wisdom unto us. Your message on bouncebackability was not just inspiring, it was activating. It was activating. You reminded us that we must shift from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, that success belongs to those willing to stay long enough to become the last man standing. That passion and perseverance will lead to long-term success. You further delve into that failure is not an ending, but a divine opportunity to repurpose and rise again. May that be echoed through all of the leaders who are in this room. And that the pillars of resilience, emotional intelligence, adaptability, and optimism are the true foundations of strong leadership. Your illustration of kintsugi, the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with gold, powerfully reminded us that our cracks and breaks are not disqualifications. They are, however, the very places where purpose, beauty, and strength can shine the brightest. To everyone here, carry this truth into your homes, your work, and your leadership spaces, and your decisions. Bounce back, stand tall, stay committed, and lead with courage. As we close tonight, I want to encourage you. Please be on time tomorrow. Another exceptional leader will be pouring into us, and we want you to benefit from the full depth of the session. Please make sure that you invite a friend or two, or a whole group, or a whole church, or a whole team at your work. Invite them to come in and learn something. We have put in the chat an opportunity for you to just follow the Unfolding Capacity WhatsApp channel so that you can get all the updates, including the presentation that we received tonight, as well as the registration link where you can just put in your details and we can get regular emails with our newsletter as well. Thank you for choosing excellence tonight. Thank you for choosing growth. And thank you for choosing to lead with intentionality. Have a restful evening. That's what Mojalefa said. Let us choose rest in this end of the year month. And we will see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. South African Standard Time. In the meantime, let us continue to unfold capacity together. I appreciate you big time and have a good evening. Blessings to everyone.
Like, share, and subscribe.